Okay, hi everyone, thanks for coming. As Libna said, I'm Dan. I'm a member of UCU at King's College London, where I'm a PhD student, and I'm also a graduate teaching assistant. And I'm a member of UCU Marxists and Socialist Appeal. And I want to talk today about why the UCU has been on strike and what we can do to take it further and actually win this dispute. So some of you will probably have heard a number of times, like, what the reasons actually are for, what the reasons we're on strike for are. But there's two disputes. One is over pay and conditions, called the four fights, and one is over pensions. And the four fights are against gender, ethnicity, and disability pay gaps, casualisation, unmanageable workloads, and pay cuts. Firstly, looking at the pay gaps, in higher education there's a gap of around 15% in pay between men and women workers, a gap of 17% between white and black workers, and a gap of about 9% between workers without disabilities and disabled workers. And we have to call this what it is. It's discrimination, and it's discrimination that our employers are doing nothing about. Not only that, but you have to see it in the context of real terms pay cuts. The employers have recently offered higher education workers a 1.5% pay increase. But that offer is, as it has been in the past, well below inflation. And once inflation is taken into account, that's a real terms pay cut of over 20% since 2009. Not only that, but the lowest paid teachers in higher education are paid only £8.70 per hour. And this is while student fees have been rising, and the salaries of vice-chancellors have also been rising. Vice-chancellors earn upwards of £269,000 per year, with some of the highest paid, including at my own university at King's, earning upwards of £400,000. And that's not including other benefits like accommodation costs, pensions that they get. And that's what student fees are going towards. They're going towards paying for vice-chancellors. And it shows that it's simply a lie that there's no money to spend on staff. If universities have the money to pay vice-chancellors these astronomical and rising salaries, then they have the money to give what we're asking for, a £2,500 pay rise to the people who actually do the excellent teaching and research that the universities rely on for their prestige. And not only is our pay falling, but more and more work is being squeezed out of us for it. In the sector, there are about 3,500 staff on exploitative zero-hour contracts, and 68% of academics are on fixed-term contracts with no long-term job security. And this includes GTAs like myself, and universities are relying more and more on these casualised, fixed-term, low-paid workers to do really the essential work that the university couldn't run without, like running seminars, marking exams, this kind of thing. A survey carried out by the UCU revealed that 4 in 5 staff are struggling with their workload, and 78% are reporting an increased workload due to the pandemic. And 86% have been directed towards mental health support for managing their workload. Not only that, but 3,000 university workers were actually made redundant during the pandemic. And all of these issues exist, and management knows about them, but they haven't addressed them. And they've done nothing to address them. So that's the four fights. The other dispute is about pensions. And pensions they're not a gift from our employers. They're workers earn, every penny of them, and they're owed every penny. But pensions in higher education have been cut by £240,000 since 2011, and the employers are also now proposing a further 35% cut, along with higher contributions from workers. And all this is based, this current offer is based on a valuation that was done of the pension fund at the very lowest point of the coronavirus stock market crash. So the proposed cuts are completely unnecessary. The markets recover from then, and they can choose when they do their valuations. It's quite transparent, really. So people go into academia for the love of their subjects, right? They want to work on them and think about them and teach them to students. But you can't do that when you're being paid less and less for more and more work. If you're on insecure or casual contracts, and that's doubly so if you're black, if you're a woman, if you're disabled. Only to have nothing to show for it at the end of your working life because your pension's been gutted. And this is why we've been forced to fight for our conditions by going on strike these last 3 days. But this isn't just affecting university workers, and I want to talk a little bit about the reasons how we've got here. One of the things is the increasing marketization of higher education. It's a symptom of the increasing marketization of everything. But more and more universities are seen by their management teams as businesses, complete with students as paying customers. And that's the reason that universities are spending more and more on fancy buildings and on the salaries of their vice-chancellors, as I've said, while spending less and less on the budgets, less and less of their budgets on staff. It's the same race to the bottom we see in every industry. We're also seeing the private sector having greater and greater influence in higher education through schemes like the PFI, and increasingly small amounts of public investment in higher education. We have to strongly oppose this. Students aren't our customers, and education should be free and publicly funded. And universities should be run democratically by their staff and students, not as businesses by out-of-touch management teams. But I think we've got to understand all these changes, this marketization, in the context of a more general crisis of capitalism. Since the crash in 2008, the capitalist system's been limping along, stagnating. And although there's a huge amount of wealth and excess capacity, most of that in the pockets of vice-chancellors at universities, it can't be profitably put to use. And so the capitalist regime just doesn't work. And the pandemic's only exacerbated this trend. Our Tory government and governments around the world can't point to a way out. So they're attempting to make workers pay for the crisis through austerity measures and cuts and stuff. And those measures explain why university workers are facing these conditions, but they also explain why all workers are facing these conditions. Other unions in other sectors, Unite, Unison Unite are actually going on strike at King's next week as well. They're all considering and taking strike action in the face of cuts and erosion of their conditions, which are fundamentally no different to the ones that university workers are facing. We're going to hear in a minute from Aaron, who's a representative of the NEU. The crisis of capitalism is affecting workers in all industries and across the globe, and they're fighting back. To take two recent examples, we've seen fights over fire and rehire practices at the Weetabix factories in the north, where workers have recently escalated their action to indefinite strike 4 days a week. In America, you've seen this phenomenon of Striketober, where like 100,000 workers have voted to go on strike in industries like healthcare, construction, coal mining, communications, food manufacturing. It's really exciting to see, I think. But what can we do about it here in the UCU? Joe Grady, the General Secretary of the UCU, said in an email to members yesterday that we know we're right, but being right doesn't win disputes. Action wins disputes. And I think she's right about that. It's absolutely right that we've been on strike these past 3 days, not just convincing people, but showing that we can put our money where our mouth is. We've made a great progress in showing students and the public that we're in the right, and that we're winning them to our side. But we're not just striking for the sake of it. We have to strike to win. If we don't win, then we're going to have been out in the cold and losing pay for no reason, really. How then can we win? I think we have to show the employers just how serious we are about these demands. If they won't come to the table, then we need to escalate the fight. We need a plan for a marking boycott over Christmas and indefinite strike action in 2022. We won't work until our demands are met. And that's going to be hard, and it's going to require all the solidarity we can get. But taking this bold step is really the only hope we have of anything coming of this dispute. And we should learn from the brilliant example of workers at the University of Liverpool, who recently were faced with redundancies and responded with 3 weeks of strike and a marking boycott, and those redundancies were stopped. They won their dispute. But this action can't be taken and shouldn't be taken by the UCU alone. To really have an impact, this kind of action should be coordinated with other trade unions, with other workers who are affected by the same crisis and by the same cuts. With a bold, coordinated fight by the whole working class, we can not only win this dispute, we can also mobilise to kick out the Tories who are making us pay for the crisis, and ultimately we can mobilise to overthrow the capitalist system that's caused this crisis in the first place. So thank you.